Hello, everybody. I'm Dominique.
And I'm Avalon.
And welcome to the second episode of Dark Tales of Halloween.
Right, and before we jump into today's topic, we wanted to announce that we're going to be doing a giveaway on our Instagram and Twitter. So we'll be giving away 2 original Dark Matter Halloween-themed artworks by Dom. She made them. So go check out our Twitter, which is at darkmatter_pod, and our Instagram, which is at darkmatterpod, for a chance to win.
Yes, and so today we have a true crime episode, and we'll be telling you guys a story of a murder that changed Halloween for an entire town. And this is the case of Shauna Howe. She was an 11-year-old girl who was kidnapped and found murdered in October of 1992 in Oil City, Pennsylvania.
Right, and before we go any further, we just want to warn you guys that this episode does have details of violence and sexual assault of a child. So please just be aware of that, and if that's something you're more sensitive to, this might not be the episode for you.
Right. So, Shauna Melinda Howe was a shy brunette with a page boy haircut and blue eyes, and she was born on July 11th, 1981 to her parents Robert Howe and Lucy Brown, and she was a local Girl Scout. On October 27th, around 8 p.m., Shauna was on her way home from a Girl Scouts Halloween party when she was abducted near the intersection of West 1st and Reed Street, which is about 2 blocks from her home. And around 10 p.m., when Shauna didn't return home, her mother called the police department and reported her missing. And the police were actually already looking for Shauna because they received a call about 3 hours earlier from an Oil City resident named Dan Payton. And he had witnessed her abduction, and he was fortunately able to give them details about what happened. Dan had called the police and told them that he had seen a tall, disheveled-looking man grab a little girl and take off with her in a rust-colored car.
That's crazy. So basically they knew a girl was missing, but then once their parents called, they knew which girl was missing.
Yeah, so all they knew was that little girl had been abducted, but I guess when her parents called, they kind of put 2 and 2 together and said, okay, this is probably her.
Sense. Yeah, that's crazy, too, to think about, like, she was just walking home. Like you mentioned, it was 2 blocks away, so that's not super far, but it was at night, you know, and, like, they just let an 11-year-old just walk home. You know, before we, like, get up in arms and we're like, oh, that's bad parenting, this was a really different time, and it's a really different town than a lot of us grew up in. You know, I feel like in SoCal, like, especially nowadays, I wouldn't let my kid walk home like that.
No, yeah.
But back in the 90s, this was the early 90s, too, and it was in Pennsylvania, and it was a super, super small town. It's just a different time. Like, you can't compare it. So that's crazy to think how, like, trusting people were. You know, it's just, like, I guess, more innocent time. Like, not that it was more innocent, but it, like, felt like that. You know what I mean? They didn't think these things could happen.
Yeah, I feel like back then, especially in the 90s, people were definitely more trusting. Like I said, this was a small town, so they felt comfortable leaving their doors open, and everyone kind of knew each other. So I felt like everyone kind of had this sense that everything was safe. Before, like, the advent of the internet, I feel like people were a lot less knowledgeable about the actual dangers people pose. So, yeah, I think that's what kind of contributed to this situation.
Yeah, because my mom always says the 80s was an innocent time. And I'm like, yeah, but I think it's just that, like, you guys thought it was. You know what I mean? Because rapes and, like, murders have always happened. It's just, like you said, the internet and, like, a variety of things. People just didn't really think about it. And people didn't know about it as much. And, like, it definitely became more of a problem. But I don't think it was that innocent. I think it was just people just felt safe there. It was just, like, a hometown. Right, and at the time she was taken, Shauna had been dressed up as a gymnast for the Halloween party, and she was wearing a turquoise and black leotard. And after 2 days of searching, a piece of the leotard was found on a hiking trail about 8 miles from town in Rockland, Pennsylvania, near a swimming hole called Coulter's Hole. And then the next morning, Shauna's body, unfortunately, was found about 220 yards away. She was face down at the bottom of a 30-foot railroad trestle between a rock and a log. If you don't know what a trestle is, I didn't know what that was either. Basically just like a bridge that a train would go over, right? But you said it wasn't working, right? Like it was an abandoned one, so.
Yeah, from sources that I found, they said that it was an abandoned railroad trestle. So basically it's like a railroad bridge that trains would use to go to, and there was this like bank underneath. Yeah, bank underneath it.
Right, and so 30 feet. So it was a pretty significant drop from the trestle to the ground. And investigators believe that the extensive injuries she received were from falling, and that basically caused her death. So they think that she fell from the trestle, and like that's really what killed her.
Right.
And her injuries included extensive blunt force trauma, such as fractured ribs, hemorrhaging, and multiple lacerations and contusions. And after an autopsy, it was also determined that Shauna had been a victim of sexual assault, which although it's really disturbing and sad, it's not shocking. Like, a lot of times when they find a missing person who is killed, like, many times they were also sexually assaulted.
Right.
And it was clear that Shauna had been alive when she fell. So, like, she wasn't... Because when I was first reading this, I was like, that seems weird. I feel like the person would have killed her first. But they pretty much were able to rule that out and determine that she was alive when she fell off the trestle because she had a broken arm and dislocated shoulder, which suggests that she was trying to break her fall. So she wasn't dead when she fell. And the worst part, this is just really disturbing. It's really hard to think about. But they do believe that Shauna might have survived after the fall up to 30 minutes. And at that point, she would have had one of her ribs poking through her chest, and she would have been alive to endure that. So I can't even imagine what she was going through in those 30 minutes or however long it was.
Yeah, because I mean, and she was only 11 years old, so can you imagine how terrified she must be and how much pain? So it's so heartbreaking to think about. It's horrible
to think about. Like, it's just so horrible. I'd like to think that it just happened instantly because I don't even want to think all the pain she went through, but they don't think that's what happened.
Yeah.
Right, and in 1992, when this happened, population in Oil City was around 12,000, so really not a lot of people. And it was the kind of town that, like we said earlier, people felt safe just, like, not locking their doors. Probably everybody knew everybody, you knew your neighbors and everything. So this murder definitely, shocked the whole community. It shocked the town because... people always say that, like, oh, it's a small town, like, they didn't expect it. Yeah, but 12,000 people is pretty small. They really... I think wouldn't have expected this.
I think we have less students, like, on a college campus than that. I mean, more students.
Yeah, no, at Cal Poly, we had, I think, like 36,000 people going to Cal Poly, something like that. So, like, 3 times the population of just this town.
Yeah, imagine. So it's like, it's less than what a college campus would be, which is crazy to think about.
No, it's wild. So, yeah, it definitely, like, it really was one of those towns. Like, nobody would have expect this to happen.
Right. Which I feel like that happens a lot in most cases. I feel like every true crime case is like, oh, it's such a safe town. No one ever expected anything like this to happen here.
Yeah, and now that I think of it, I don't even know why people say that because it's like, why would it happen in a big town? Like something so horrible like this? I guess because there's more people. Like,
right. It increases the chances.
Yeah. I guess the idea is that in a small town, everybody knows each other.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're all good people. Like, even if you think you know someone, you might not. You know what I mean? So... I don't know. I think that's kind of funny that the old trope of it was a small town. Everyone left their doors open. Like, how many times have we heard that? At this point, it's like maybe you should be more scared than one of those towns because it seems like it always happens there.
Yeah, lock your doors, people.
Yeah, lock your doors even if you feel safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so following the discovery of her body, the Oil City Council banned any Halloween nighttime activities, and trick-or-treating was only allowed from 2 to 4 p.m. So obviously... that's only a 2-hour gap. Like that's really early in the day. I remember as a kid, I would probably start trick-or-treating at like 5 or 6 and stay out for hours.
Dark.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the idea was like, they're like, we're going to not have it during the nighttime, like only during the day. Mm-hmm. And basically everything was like any kind of like Halloween parties or anything like that was all just canceled.
Yeah, pretty much. So now let's dive into the investigation. So forensic evidence and DNA was taken from Shauna's body, and they actually found 2 hairs, which they sent to the Pennsylvania State Police Crime Lab as well as the FBI lab. And the police and FBI followed several leads, which span like all throughout the country, but eventually months passed and then years, and then the case eventually went cold. The residents of Oil City held annual memorials for Shauna on the anniversary of her abduction, and they actually continued to enforce the Halloween ban every single year. So this Halloween ban went on for years. Yeah,
I didn't realize that. I that would, in my mind, it seemed like that would be a thing for 1 year, and then they'd kind of like lay low. But I wonder if it almost just became tradition that it's like that we just do this almost like out of respect for her. Like, because why would you even continue doing it? You know, maybe they were just scared that the person was still there. Honestly, that makes sense too.
Yeah, well, I think a major part of it was the fact that, you know, the case did go cold and they didn't find this guy for years and years. So I think the thought was, well, this person could still be in this town and then something like this could happen again if we don't take precautions.
That is really scary, honestly. That makes sense. But then at the same time, it's like, if you don't have Halloween parties, but you have Christmas parties, like maybe their thing wasn't Halloween. Maybe it's just abducting people. So you know what I mean? I don't know. But people probably got more cautious anyways, like just in general in that town after this. But that's crazy to think how much it affected them even years and years later.
Right. And I mean, I think it does have to do with the fact that this obviously is very new to the town. Like, this isn't something that happens often. So
they're just like, let's cover all our
yeah,
bases.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They were so shocked by it. I think they were just like, okay, let's make sure that this never happens again, or try to do our best to prevent it from ever happening again. So then in 2002, there was a break in her case, and a DNA sample had actually been taken from an inmate who was already in jail for another crime. And he was from Oil City, which was the same town that Shauna was in. And he was actually in jail for, get this, trying to abduct another woman from Oil City.
Was it a jail in Oil City, or was it in some other place?
I don't know if it was in Oil City, but the guy was from Oil City. So he had lived in Shauna's town. And he had tried to abduct
someone there.
Yeah, so that's crazy to me that he was in jail for that. And then, so later on, they found out that it was a match for the semen found on Shauna's leotard, like we mentioned. And this man's name was James O'Brien. And like we said, he was currently serving time for attempted kidnapping of another woman.
That makes him look very suspicious.
Yes, very much. After this, investigators then re-interviewed a man that they had talked to back in 1992, an Oil City resident named Eldred Ted Walker. And Ted eventually confessed to being involved in Shauna's abduction, and they told him that he had actually been the one to grab Shauna off the street that day. And he confessed to police that at first he and James O'Brien, along with James's brother Timothy, had actually just planned a Halloween prank of a staged kidnapping. And they said that this was meant to make the Oil City Police Department look like fools because they were just planning to release the kid back near their house in a couple hours later, which I don't even understand this line of thinking, because even if they had grabbed a child and then returned them a couple hours later, that's still kidnapping and it's still a crime, which you would have gotten arrested for. So again, I mean, this was a dumb plan from the very beginning. I think it just shows the lack of intelligence here, the lack of forethought.
I think it also shows that he's full of shit. Like, in my mind, that's what it shows me, because it's like, what does that even mean? It was a staged kidnapping. We kind of talked about this earlier, that like a staged kidnapping or like a fake kidnapping implies that the person being abducted is in on it and is not actually, is going willingly. That would be staged and that wouldn't be a real abduction. But that's not what happened. The thing is, even if you do a fake kidnapping and you release them, the damage is still done to that child. The psychological damage is already done, and the crime has already been committed. You can say it's fake, but in reality, you just committed a crime. You just hurt a child. It doesn't matter what you say about it. And that doesn't make the police look like fools. It doesn't make anyone look like fools but yourself.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't get either. It's like, why would it make the police department look like fools? For investigating an abducted
child? Yeah. And like, I really just don't even understand why they did it to start with. Why did you want the police to look like fools? Like, what was the point of that? Because there was probably real crimes that they could be solving, and I just don't understand what the point of it was. I don't know. To me, it either says, like you said, he's really stupid, or it was
he's
bullshit.
Just a criminal, honestly.
Yeah, he's just a criminal. Yeah, because he tried to kidnap someone before, or one of them did. So for them to be like, oh, he was just to make the cops look bad. Well, why did you try to kidnap someone before? Was that also to make the cops look bad? Like, I don't think so. I think you guys are just like creepy ass people that belong in jail.
Exactly.
All right. So Ted admitted at first that he had planned to take an 8-year-old boy who was friends with Ted's son, but eventually decided that a missing girl would garner more attention. So again, it's just not really making sense. It's like, so you want attention for the case? Was it a ransom thing and he's not saying it? It sounds like BS.
I mean, this plan was obviously not well thought out.
Yeah, especially if he would have taken someone that like they were directly connected to, like Ted's son's friend. It would have been tied back to you very easily. Just the whole thing was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he said that he'd seen Shauna walking down the street and lured her close by asking about Girl Scout cookies, because remember, she was a Girl Scout. Not really sure here, because as we mentioned earlier, she was wearing like a costume. She was dressed as a gymnast, but she was at a Girl Scout party, so she might have had something like her hat or like the sash or something.
So one news source I found did say that she had her sash on her, but that was the only one I could find to corroborate it. So we're not sure, but either way, I think, again, she was pretty recognizable as a Girl Scout.
Somehow he knew that she was a Girl Scout, so that's how he lured her in.
Yeah.
Then he put his hand over her mouth so she couldn't scream and shoved her into the car with the O'Brien brothers inside, and he left in another vehicle. So basically, he put her in the car with the O'Briens, and then he drove off.
Yeah, so they just took off and he followed them.
Right. So Ted also said that he heard this before. He hadn't wanted to kidnap Shauna, but that he had been scared of the O'Brien brothers as they had threatened his own son when he spoke up against the idea. And in my mind, it's just like, first of all, why were you associated with these people that are literally kidnappers and rapists? why were you associated with them to start with? But secondly, I don't care about your intention. I don't care that, I didn't want to kidnap her. You shouldn't have then. You could have gone to the cops. You could have gone you could have done anything else. And it's just so insane to me to say, well, I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyways.
Yeah,
Why?
exactly. At the end of the day, you chose to do it, so I don't feel any pity for you at all.
There's no excuse. Yeah, nobody, like you said this earlier, nobody held a gun to your head. Nobody made you do it.
Yeah.
Like, you can say that, I was scared, whatever, but no, I think that's, again, it's just BS. Like, everything he says is, it just makes him look bad.
Right, and again, we don't know if he's giving them up to save his own ass, because I think that's a very big possibility. Obviously, if he knows that he's the one with the information, maybe he's like, okay, well, I can tell police this, and that'll cover my ass, because he's all like, well, all I did was abduct her, I didn't participate in her actual rape and killing, so I guess that makes it okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's one of those situations where in his mind, it's like he knows he got caught up, so he might as well give them something.
Right, but not admit to...
But not actually say. Yeah, because I think in his mind, he's like, well, this is an opportunity. I can give them an admission or like a confession, but not tell them the actual truth and then be able to give it away with it.
On to someone else.
Exactly. I feel like this happens a lot. Is that like this reminded me of the case of Christian and Kayla.
Yes.
Where the accomplice was like, I just buried her, or I moved her body, but I didn't kill her, and I didn't see the kids. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, sure, but like, why didn't you tell anybody about it? If that's the truth, so it's just one of those situations that he was definitely trying to pass the blame.
Yeah.
And so after they abducted her, they all drove to Ted's house, where James and Timothy O'Brien took her to a room on the second floor. Ted said that he was cooking spaghetti in the kitchen, which,
just
side
casual.
note, yeah, I'm like, how could you eat right then?
Right?
Like, you just abducted a child. That just shows, I think that makes him look even more suspicious, that he was able to just make dinner, eat, while there was an abducted little girl in the house. Like, that is just...
Yeah, I think that shows his true character.
So yeah.
He's all like, I know some shady stuff is going on upstairs, but I'm just going to make dinner for myself.
Yeah, any normal person who was, supposedly forced into this would not be able to eat. They would be
would be a mess.
So scared. Yeah, exactly. So I think that makes him look very sketchy again. But so he was cooking when he said he heard Shauna yelling, "Get off me." He claimed that that's when he told the O'Briens to leave his house, and that was the last time he saw her. So I guess... so when I first read this, I read it as she was still with him. But he told the O'Briens to leave with her.
Yeah, so he's claiming, anyway, that
shit.
they just... He's all like, no, after I heard this, couldn't take it, so I told them to get away. So that's basically him, like, saying, I had nothing to do with what happened from here on.
And basically what he's saying, because I thought he said he told them to leave and she was with him because he didn't want them to rape her. Mm-hmm. But basically what he's saying is, just don't rape her in my house.
Yeah, like, I just don't want to be witness to this.
Yeah, even his confession, it makes him look bad.
Come on.
He's such a piece of shit. All of them are. So Ted apparently changed his story about 15 times. Again, he's so suspicious since he'd first been interviewed, but eventually they made a deal with him. So in exchange for testifying against the O'Briens in court, he would be allowed to plead guilty to only third-degree murder and kidnapping, which held a maximum sentence of 40 years. And, I don't know, kind of like considering everything he said, let's just say his story was true. Kidnapping for sure, and third-degree murder
for sure.
Yeah, that seems about fair. But do we know if his story is true? I mean, 15 changes. Yeah, it was a 10-year gap, so he's gonna forget things. But like
not 15
times. Like, this is the kind of thing that you remember pretty well. You know, if
or I
you were
would
involved.
hope you would.
Yeah, if you were involved in something so horrible. So the sentence seems completely fair if what he said is true. But how do we know?
Right. But again, that's why I take this as him being like, okay, I can plead to lesser charges and implicate them in exchange, for not being punished as much. So that's true that we don't know his story, but as far as I have heard, like, the O'Briens never tried to toss it back to him and say, oh no, he was involved. So, maybe that is how it went down.
Yeah, and I feel like there was also kind of a dynamic where it's the O'Briens and then him, and he could kind of just be like, well, they were the ones doing this, and I was doing this. It seemed like the O'Briens kept together, and at the end of the day, the DNA evidence they found was tied to the one of the O'Brien brothers, not to him.
Right.
So it kind of does make sense.
Right, so they did get the DNA evidence off Shauna's leotard implicating James O'Brien, but they only had Ted's testimony to implicate Timothy O'Brien. However, a former cellmate of Timothy O'Brien's named Ryan Heath, who had actually shared a cell with him in 2001 for about 8 months, also actually ended up testifying against him. He said that Timothy told him that he and his brother James had driven to Coulter's Hole with Shauna in the back of their trunk, and then that they threw her over the bridge and into the bank. So basically, they're admitting to her, because I think up until this point, police weren't sure if they had deliberately like thrown her or pushed her, or if she had maybe been trying to run away from them and just like fell or jumped. But I think this confirms that he had like actively thrown her into the bank. So this, obviously implicates his guilt. And finally, on October 26, 2005, 13 years after her murder, Timothy and James O'Brien were found guilty of second and third degree murder, as well as involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, which, obviously.
Rape. And wait. They called it involuntary deviant sexual intercourse. Why don't they just call it rape?
Oh, wait. I'm not done yet. Okay, so here's the thing. So that's what they were charged for, and they were also charged for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, but they were acquitted for first degree murder and rape, and they were sentenced to life in prison without parole. But
if they got life in prison without parole, then that's all that really matters. But like, what even is involuntary deviant sexual intercourse other than rape? Like, why is that even 2 charges?
That's why I was so confused. I'm like, what do you mean they weren't acquitted for rape? Like, she was sexually assaulted. That's rape. And what is it? Yeah, that's true. What's the difference between...
That's literally what rape is involuntary sex. So how could they were like, oh yeah, you committed involuntary sex, but you didn't commit rape.
That's why I was so confused. What is the point of this? Because to me, that just seems like you're dressing it up in fancier terms. Like, involuntary, deviant sexual intercourse. Like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, and if they got life without parole, it's pretty much the same as if they had been committed of rape and all those things. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like, why? That's just stupid to me. Why did they even do that? But I mean, again, the only thing that matters is that they were sentenced.
Yeah, and life in prison without parole. That's exactly what they deserve. Thing. Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of times the court is tied up in legal terms and stuff like that. So I can't say anything towards that because I don't understand the process.
Yeah, there probably is a reason that there's a difference between the two. Maybe the fact that they added deviant in there, which rape is obviously always deviant. Right,
but I think it was because of a minor.
Yeah, but you think it would just be called rape against a minor. But it never is. It's always like... Even the term manslaughter, like there's so many terms that are they like, basically mean the same thing, but they're just like slightly different. So there's probably a reason for it. But
yeah, I mean that's very technical and we don't understand that.
Yeah, we're not lawyers.
Yeah, we'll just leave that there then. And so when the verdicts were finally read, Shauna's family members were all present at the trial and they embraced and held hands. And her mother Lucy said, quote, "This is justice. I still have a hole in my heart, but I needed it to be solved. They took a little girl's life. They spent 12 years living their lives. My daughter would have been 24, but what does she have? Nothing."
That's heavy.
Which, yeah, it just really breaks my heart because it is true. I'm really glad they were caught, but for so many years they were in jail, which is good because at least they weren't running around hurting other girls, but at the same time, it's like her family still didn't have answers for over a decade. They still didn't know what happened to Shauna, like who took her. So I feel like this really is closure for the entire family.
Right. And so just to clarify, for Ted, the guy who confessed everything, he got 40 years then?
Yeah, I believe like 20 to 4 years is like the average sentence for that charge.
Oh yeah, because they cut him a deal, huh?
Yeah, because I don't know if it probably would have been worse if he hadn't cut the plea bargain.
Definitely.
I'm sure.
He might have gotten the same sentence as them because they could have just been like, well, you didn't say anything, so we just assumed you did the same, like you had the same role. So he definitely... He did get off a lot easier because he told them, but it seems like we said earlier, it seems like that was fair enough. Mm-hmm. During their sentencing, James O'Brien was reportedly chewing gum with a blank face. Timothy also had no reaction, so they really just didn't care, obviously. Just the fact that they would have committed this crime in the first place shows that they just like don't have morals and they're not like normal humans. So yeah, the fact that they were just sitting there without a reaction doesn't really shock me because that's the kind of people they are.
Right. Also, well, I mean, they were both already in prison for years. So
I wonder how long their sentence was before this though.
Yeah, I don't know the exact sentence, but I mean, they were in jail for attempted kidnapping.
Yeah, so I wonder how long is that sentencing generally?
I mean, I don't know, but obviously that's bad. And I think this just proves that they may have failed in that one aspect, but obviously they were able to do this to Shauna. So I mean, yeah, obviously maybe they were just in jail, so they were all like, oh, I don't care, like I'm still gonna be in jail for the rest of my life. Or again, they're monsters, so it doesn't even affect them in any way.
Yeah, I wonder, because maybe if they're already in their like 50s or something and they have 20 more years to go, then it's not that big of a difference. But
I believe they were in their like mid to late 30s.
Oh, that's not even that old.
Yeah.
You'd think they would be a little bit more shocked, like for the rest of your life, but no, that just shows what kind of people they are, like we said.
Right.
And their mother, Linda O'Brien, and sister Nancy were also at the trial and later released a statement saying they continued to believe that Timothy and James did not commit that crime. I know you have to just like believe what you can with, because it's your own child. You raised your child. Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't want to think that they did that, but there's so much evidence.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, especially with the DNA, I think there's no
way around DNA.
That proof, yeah. But I understand her completely because, like you mentioned, that, that is your child, and obviously you want to believe the best of them. But I mean, here's the thing. You already knew that your sons were in jail. You knew they were bad guys. So how much of a stretch is it to believe, like, oh, yeah, they committed this murder, they committed rape? But again, I think it is maybe denial, just saying, like, no, they could never actually commit murder.
Yeah, maybe she thinks they didn't commit the kidnappings either, or the attempted kidnapping either. Maybe she just thinks that they're innocent of everything.
Like burying her head in the sand.
Yeah, a lot of times this does happen. I've seen this before, that families are like, oh, no, I don't think they did it. And it's crazier too, though, when the family's like, oh, no, they definitely did it. Like, fuck them.
Yeah.
That's crazy, because that actually happens less, I feel.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen several true crime cases too where the family is actually split. Like, one part of the family will say, no, like, he's totally innocent, I don't think he's capable of doing anything like this, and then the other half will say
problems.
The other half will say, no, he definitely did this.
So in 2008, so now like many years after the crime was committed, a 10-year-old girl gathered a petition with 175 signatures, and the city council lifted the 16-year ban of nighttime trick-or-treating and brought back Halloween to Oil City. So this was 16 years of no trick-or-treating. And
at nighttime anyway.
Yeah, and if the ban was if it was the same ban, then that means no Halloween parties, no like Halloween festivities at all. Other than maybe they could like go to a pumpkin patch or something. I don't know, because that's during the day. But like pretty much all nighttime festivities during that time were canceled for 16 years. That's crazy. So if you
So this was actually even 3 years after Shauna's trial. So
yeah,
it was after her. It was 13 years after her death, but even 3 years after that, they still had continued it. Because I think that goes back to what you were saying. Like, at that point, it was tradition. It was what was used to. So they just kept on doing it. So,
yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that, because it was 3 years after they already found the people who did it. It's like, well, we found them. Like, this is a small town. It's the fact, like, the idea that there's more people like this in the town is unlikely. So you think they would just lift it right away. But yeah, I think they just got used to it. And they're like, it's just safer. But yeah, that's pretty badass. The little girl was like, no, I'm going to get my candy. Like, you're going to lift this ban. Like, that's kind of crazy. I mean,
if there's any happy ending in here, it's the fact that this town was able to kind of, I don't know, I feel like with this.
It's like closure.
Yeah, with this trial, the end of the trial, there's also a closure. And I feel like this town was able to pay its respects to Shauna, because she was finally, not that she was finally laid to rest, because she was laid to rest a while ago, but in the fact that this is all finally over.
The case was laid to rest.
Yeah, they were able to figure out like what happened to her and stuff. So I feel like this is a good thing. Like, this is a new leaf for them, and for kids to be able to fully experience Halloween as well.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it really affected the town more than, like, in more ways than one. Because it wasn't just that they were scared and that they were, maybe even suspicious of like who did it and like all of that. There's also the fact that, like we discussed, they literally didn't have Halloween for 15 plus years, for 16 years.
Yeah,
like
that's like a whole generation growing up.
Yeah, imagine if you were like if you were Shauna's age when she went missing, or even younger, your whole childhood would have been spent without Halloween, or with a very limited trick-or-treating. So yeah, I think I don't know, it's really poetic almost. It's like this end of this chapter, like you're saying, and they could just kind of move on and have Halloween again. But I think it's also cool that they didn't do that for 16 years, in like I said, kind of in respect of her, and also just to be safer,
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, if there's any silver lining here, it's the fact that, a little girl was the one that kind of ended Halloween, and then a little girl was the one who kind of brought it back.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. And she was 10 years old, almost exactly Shauna's age. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that at all. Very poetic.
And then I think they also had one last memorial to Shauna that year that everything was kind of closed down, because like I said, they had been holding like annual memorials, but the family was saying too, like, this is the last memorial and this is going to be a celebration of her life, basically. Like, this is going to be a happy moment.
The year that they brought back Halloween?
I don't know if it was the year they brought back Halloween or if the year the trial ended, but I do know, like, that whole thing did bring about the end to this. So, yeah.
That's really cool. That it has like a good, not like good ending, but it's definitely a satisfying ending. It's not one of those things where like the person who committed the crime like killed themselves or something like that. It's like this is
at least they figured it out.
They figured it out, and the town had like closure from it. It's a satisfying ending to a horrible story.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, that is the end of our episode, and we hope you enjoyed listening. We'll be back next Monday with our next spooky episode for Dark Tales of Halloween. And if you would like to follow us, our Instagram is @DarkMatterPod, and our Twitter is @DarkMatter_pod. And as always, for a full list of sources, check out our website, darkmatterpod.com. And also, don't forget to check out the giveaway if you would like to win.
Right, and if you'd like to support us, make sure you follow us on whatever platform you listen on. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, we'd really love if you left us a review. Also, be sure to subscribe and like our videos on YouTube if you enjoyed watching. And if you like our podcast, please don't forget to spread the word. It really helps us out. All right, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.